Call this meeting to order, and I'd like to start out by saying today we remember and pay our respects for a fallen colleague, Miles Hendrickson, who unexpectedly passed away this past weekend. Miles was a warm and welcoming person with a quick wit and great sense of humor. He will be greatly missed by all who knew him. Our thoughts and prayers are with Miles Hendrickson family and all those who mourn the passing of Miles. So if you're able, please join me in a moment of silence for Miles and a pledge followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda.
Motion to approve is presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Danielowski, seconded by Commissioner Felber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Keisha, open forum.
We have nobody signed up, Board Chair.
Item number 3, county proclamations and recognition celebrations. Consider approval of a proclamation designating March as Social Work Month, Health and Human Services. Morning, Amanda.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Here just to read the proclamation declaring March as Social Work Month. Whereas people have entered into the social work profession for generations because they genuinely care about helping improve the welfare of people, communities, and our nation. Whereas this year's Social Work Month theme, Social Work, Compassion plus Action, embodies the fact that social workers go through years of education and training, so they have the skills and expertise to transform their care for others into action that brings positive results. Whereas the primary mission of the social work profession is to enhance well-being and help meet the basic needs of all people, especially the most vulnerable in society. Whereas social workers have the necessary education and experience to guide individuals, families, and communities through complex issues and choices. Whereas social workers are at the forefront of pressing issues, including increased needs for mental health care, especially for children and adolescents, and substance use disorder treatment. Whereas social workers help protect millions of children from abuse and neglect, providing services and supports which help strengthen families that are under stress and help create new families through adoption. Whereas social workers help connect individuals, families, and communities to available resources and community supports. Now, therefore, in recognition of the professional social workers and their commitment and dedication to individuals, families, and communities in Sherburne County, through advocacy, service delivery, research, and education, we, the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2025 as Social Work Month.
Need a motion to approve the proclamation.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the proclamation designating the month of March 2025 as Social Work Month in Sherburne County.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Danielowski and a second by Commissioner Felber. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to say thank you, Amanda, and thank you to all of our social workers and the social workers across our country that do this very important work and very heartbreaking at times. So I thank them very much.
Appreciate that.
Any other one? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same thing. Consent agenda, Commissioner Administrator Messelt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just one note on the consent agenda. Item number 3, we have substituted an RBA. There was an error in the first RBA. The actual attachments were correct, but we had the wrong name there. So you have the updated RBA in your packet, and it is available for the public in the back of the room.
Okay. Is there any items for consideration here?
Mr. Chair, I had a question. If we could get an explanation on item number 12, considering the approval of the amended MPCA grant program entitled Replacing Failing Septics to Protect Groundwater and Increasing Said Funding and the Eligible Amounts for the Application. I think the administrator could give us an update on that.
Would you like to pull that?
Nope, I'd just like an explanation.
Okay.
So we better understand the increase from the grant from 5,000 to 10,000.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm pretty sure that process is that you pull that from the consent agenda for separate consideration to have that discussion.
Yep.
Got it.
So if you would make that motion then to pull that item?
I'll make a motion to pull item number 10, number 11.
I'll second it.
12, Keisha.
Number 12?
Yep.
You're pulling number 12.
Yep.
All right, I'm looking for, we have a motion to pull number 12 from the consent agenda.
Second, I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, less item 12.
I'll second that.
By Hulls, second by Felber. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. All right, number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Jillian's here too, and she can talk a little bit about the program. As she gets up to the podium, I'll just kind of give a high-level summary. Go ahead, yeah. The issue for clarification, and she'll spend some time on it, we have two grants within this area. One is a grant that is ending, and one is one that is based upon annual appropriations. And so we're really talking about how to manage those two grants, but with that, I'll turn it over to you, so.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, any questions I can answer, happy to help.
Yep.
I'll try again to get further because we talked about it. So, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong here then. So, normally we have an annual appropriation or biannual from the legislature that allows for a septic, low-income based septic assistance program of up to $5,000. For the last 2 years, given the state had created a one-time supplemental program, the county board by policy set that at an additional $5,000 or $6,000 if it is in the shoreland district, correct?
That's correct.
The variable is it's still all income-based. So for the last 2 years, which would end this state fiscal year, so this summer, eligible property owners could apply for up to $10,000 or $11,000 for replacement of a septic system. And I believe it's only for ISTSs, right, individual septic
Right, and
systems.
that was with a combination of applying for both grants. That wasn't getting $10,000 or $11,000 from a single grant. It was in combination with those two.
Right, so they would apply for the two grants. One is the annual appropriation or biannual appropriation grant, which we expect will continue. The additional $5,000 or $6,000 was for this 2-year special program the state had created. We're now nearing the end of the special state grant program. There is approximately $37,000 left in that program. The thinking of staff is because we limited that, which is board's purview, to only 5,000, we're at a point where we've helped like 29 applicants, but we may end up at the end of this state fiscal year with additional funds in that one-time program. So the recommendation before you is to shift the authorization for people to apply for the one-time grant up to that $10,000/$11,000 and try to utilize the one-time money, therefore allowing the recurring funds to stay, and they will then continue, because we don't anticipate the state's going to continue the one-time program again.
Additionally, I'd just like to add that if they applied for this grant going forward, they would not be eligible to apply for the second grant. So it would be a max payout of $10,000. They couldn't add the other grant on top of that and get $15,000 or something like that. So it would be equal across the board.
Correct. So we're just trying to maximize use of the one-time funds, preserve use of the recurring funds. The other thing I've noted is it's still all income-based, and we would look back to ones currently in the application queue, which I think is through January,
That's correct.
so that nobody will be like somebody who, you know, again, since it's income-based, they could all apply in the last 2 years for up to 10 or 11,000. That will still be the case. So it's simply basically a 3-month adjustment to board policy. It will allow a single grant application for up to 11. After June 30th of this year, however, we don't have the funds for the one time, so then our existing program will continue at the max of 5,000. Commissioner Schumacher, I don't know if that was enough explanation for you.
Yep, that's what I was looking for. I just wanted to make sure it was right, left pocket taxing, so it's the right side paying it, not the left side or our side coming from Fund 21 and the grant, because the way it was set up the way I read it or looked at it. I just want to know where the funds were coming from. But again, if we're not going to, it's our friends and neighbors in Isani, Wright, Mille Lacs, the money gets deferred back to the state, then it would get reallocated around all of our neighbors if we don't end up doing this. But it was just more about making sure that it wasn't coming out of, Fund 21 to pay for that. But that's exactly the explanation that I was looking for.
Wasn't this program expanded from one time? Didn't we, the amount of funds available from 50,000 to
So in 2023, so there were additional funds, and that's just $155,000. The state basically put out an LCMR grant opportunity. The county Planning and Zoning Department took advantage of that. And this board, initially, we looked at 100, but then we said, no, we've had pretty good success with this program. We think we can do $155,000 with this program. And we virtually have successfully done that. We just have a little bit left that we want to make sure that we utilize it so it doesn't go back to the state, that it can stay in Sherburne County. And then our second program, we did increase the amount last year. The state increased the grant opportunity. So we have $50,000 for a reoccurring grant that we're utilizing to upgrade low-income septics to help protect groundwater. So,
yeah, this is a win-win program for the low-income people and the environment in all aspects, so I see no problem with this at all.
And one last thing, it's just the process, if we could have a workshop on this, I mean, because this is an ongoing issue, to come up with, solutions and conversations, to be able to, in the future, put it on the workshop list sometime in the future. That would be a side note of this conversation.
Any more discussion?
And
For a motion to approve number 12 then. Commissioner
real
Moore.
quick, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Schumacher, with your permission, if we do a workshop, I'd like to expand it from just beyond individual septic systems, but also maybe talk about community septic, since we've had some conversations in the past about community septic as well, if that's okay with the board.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Very good idea, thank you.
Yeah, that's a real good idea.
I'll make a motion to approve former consent item 12.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hulls and a second by Commissioner Schumacher. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All
That
those
was-
opposed?
can I just make one clarification? That was up to $10,000, right?
11.
Or 11.
Yeah, it's what's in the RBA.
Just the way it reads.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
moving on. Administrator Messelt, announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a few announcements, and then I'll stand for any questions. We don't have a standing legislative update on the agenda, so this really serves as that. Just a little bit of a calendar call. The AMC Leadership Summit is scheduled for the 26th through the 28th of March. As of now, we only have one commissioner signed up to attend. I don't believe staff will be attending, so just FYI for that. Second is we do have grant funds available. Should a commissioner be interested in attending a conference in Duluth on May 20th through the 21st called Under One Roof. It is a conference related to emergency management and emergency preparedness. If that's of interest to you, I'll send out the solicitation so you can review it and you can let Keisha or me know. But there is some grant funding available should a commissioner be interested in attending that. Rhiann?
What was the date again, please?
May 20th through the 21st. Third, just want to spend a little bit of time on some legislative updates. I think I'll spend most time at the state level. Both of our bonding bills, as you know, have been introduced. But if you've been tracking the updates, the legislature is kind of behind the 8 ball on timing. Their primary function will be to get a biennial budget passed. Secondary would be any bonding bills, so we're tracking those very closely. As part of that, more than likely, we will be asked to testify again on the governor's proposed budget shifts. I've updated the slide that you saw in February. I'll send it out to you, or if you want, we can try to pull it up here now. Basically, we fine-tuned our numbers and our story. If we get asked to testify, I may be requesting one of you or a couple of you to go down and testify. Or if you want, I can do that again as I did before. But, excuse me, AMC continues to tell that story, so we want to be a part of that. Second of all, with related conversation at the state, I think the thing that is noted for today is an update on North Star. Andrew and I did have a chance to get on a conference call with the Met Council as well as the Minnesota Department of Transportation Transit folks. It is very clear that the current administration as well as the Met Council are intent on terminating North Star. And the conversation was about, in their desired timeline, months, not years. So our preservation of our rights for terminating the North Star link, I think were timely at the last board meeting. However, a little bit of frustration. It's also very clear that the Met Council's position is any future transit service outside of the 7-county metro region will not be funded or administered or managed by the Met Council. So anything that would relate to a bus rapid transit would have to be re-originated or recreated. The Met Council has zero interest in taking the lead on that. The discussion about intercity rail as a long-term option also was a little bit dooming, because it was also clear that intercity rail would not have excuse me, the number of stops that North Star did. In other words, I think intercity rail, the way we read it, was basically going to go from St. Cloud to Minneapolis. There may possibly be one stop in between, but it clearly would not be in Sherburne County. So the long-term prospects of rail with the current thinking probably does not include the existing stops here. Any discussion about the link, expanding it, or replacing it with a bus rapid transit is to be determined. It's not a short-term conversation, so the likelihood is we will end up with a situation where North Star could be terminated and the link would be a bus to nowhere. So that's the prospects. We also expressed our disappointment with the lack of conversation prior to this, as well as specifically with the commissioners, 2 of which are supposed to be on a committee, which to my understanding has never met. So what Andrew and I are doing is putting together a history for this board, as well as the investment that we have, because the investment to the county is in the millions, way back to when it was first explored as a commuter rail system. With that information, you can decide if you want to formally request a conversation with Commissioner Zelli and the Commissioner of Transportation, or if you would rather just pursue it on different avenues. There will be a meeting in Anoka County that we have been asked to be able to participate in. I do not know if it's at the elected level or staff level. Anoka, as you can imagine, has a significant investment as well. We've also reached out to our 2 cities, Big Lake and to Elk River, to coordinate this. But I do think the next step for us will be to look at our financial investment and to see whether or not we have any claims with respect to repayment if this thing shuts down. Other than that, the economic implications for the communities really hasn't been looked at, and I don't think there's much appetite in the Met Council or in MnDOT to spend a lot of time on it. So that's kind of the reading we got from that. I'll stand if there's any immediate reactions to my steps forward by doing that research for you and putting together a packet, basically.
Mr. Chair, I think we do need to request some conversation to get a better understanding what it is. I mean, it seems like they're intentionally cutting Sherburne County out of any picture. My understanding was if it is replaced with a bus, that the bus would stop at Anoka. That's what I have heard through the grapevine. And based on what you're saying, where even if there were to be some rail system in the future, it would not stop in Sherburne County. There's a lot of communities that have invested along with us as a county, and we need to, I think, be at the table to advocate for our position, reimbursement, whatever the case may be. That's my...
Yeah, I would say we were disappointed with Met Council's position in particular. And again, this is staff level, unofficial, but it's a good read, and we're obviously keeping the communication lines open. I can see their perspective. They receive taxes from the 7-county metro, so they feel that's who they are responsible for. Elk River is a little bit of an anomaly because it is in part of the Met Council's transit service area. But I think your read is correct. Any talk, like you've seen today, there was a big article about the Gold Line opening, and it's a dedicated bus rapid transit lane going east metro. You know, that's, we're talking a decade away for anything like that for our service area. So it really is down to, will there be any commuter bus service and who pays for it?
And Mr. Chair, I think too, that I just feel it's such a short-sighted thought process because the amount of people that go down to the metro to supply a workforce for the job environment heading that way. I think we see that on our economic reports, that the outflow from this area heading to the metro is quite substantial. So it's frustrating to have them intentionally want to cut out what workforce does come from Sherburne County to help support the metro, along with the people that go down there and help support the metro tax when they go down to shop, eat, recreate, if that's even a word, I apologize if it isn't. Very short-sighted, and it is very frustrating.
Mr. Chair, I absolutely hear what you're saying. The one thing I want to be cautious of is throwing good money after bad. Yes, there is a sunk cost in what has been spent in the North Star to date. We also last week received the latest ridership numbers, and they continue to decline. I'm not convinced. Well, I was never convinced that the ridership justified a train, period, just because of the supplemental cost required. I think we have to take a hard look at the total ridership and what that means. You know, from a potential bus service as well. Yes, there is infrastructure that has been invested in, but let's make good fiscal decisions and not throw good money after bad just because we have sunk costs.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just would like, I mean, my biggest concern is I don't want to end up getting sucked into another transportation money pit. This sucks up the money and doesn't actually accomplish what it set out to do in the first place. So that would be, obviously, we have to sit and have more conversations about that down the road.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we, you know, obviously if there's a future rail conversation or transit conversation, we're there, but my focus at this point is if there's any type of bailout or writing off of debt, that we're at the table. Because if there's a bailout of, let's say, MnDOT or Met Council by the legislature, that, in my opinion, should go to all of the partners and that the locals not be ignored, because your rail authority, which is you, spent millions of dollars as part of North Star. So if there's a if it's a write-off, that's fine, and that's what they're looking at, getting, you know, forgiveness from the feds and things like that. But the vexing part for me is not only do we not have a seat at the table, which we should have, they're not even talking to us. And that's
Mr. Chair, that was my point.
That's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Is it true that you're on the North Star Committee, right? You've never met? Met once.
Yeah.
And through 2 years ago. And they decided all of this without that committee meeting again.
Yeah, it was
Bold?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's a nice term, bold.
That's bold.
I just wanted to use that word. I'm vexed, you know, so just, you know, so.
Yeah, recreate was a good word too, so.
That's a Felber word. I'm vexed. So. All right, so that's an update from anything else that you are interested in the legislature. Obviously, I've been sending you, or you've been getting copies of Micah and AMC's positions. A lot of tracking of a lot of activities right now. I think, given the budget forecast, the interesting thing is, while the budget forecasts seem to get worse, it really will not affect this next upcoming biennium. It gets significant in the out years. But it does immediately constrain any thought of additional programming. It also puts a constraint on the bonding bill, any type of additional funding. Those type of things are pretty much, I think, effectively off the table. Given the legislative split, I think also tax increases are probably off the table. But that also means major legislative reforms might also be off the table. So we're really in kind of this very tight box of trying to adjust things. I would suspect we're not going to see significant changes between now and the end of the legislative session. That's my read. You may have a different one. So, any other thoughts on the state level?
I concur. I mean, Mr. Chair, I don't see that there's going to be a whole lot done. I mean, everything I'm tracking seems to have stalled, so.
Shifting to the federal level. Oh, go ahead, Brent. I'm sorry.
Yep, Mr. Chair, one last thing. So I'm kind of interested in when the quiet conversation happened on the rail, because, it kind of came out of nowhere sort of thing. So if we listen in the room, when we're in the room and the conversation comes out, like, how did they drum this up? Yep, and that was the thing, like, in the room, if someone's in the room and it's not me, it's a quiet conversation to ask, when did they come up with this great idea? How long ago? Was it literally 2 weeks ago, or was it a year ago? That was kind of my thing of asking the questions in the room.
It was a couple of weeks ago when they just announced there was supposed to be a whole committee hearing happening, and they just plain announced that we are moving towards.
Zero.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the legislators themselves were given about 2 hours notice before the hearing. And many of them had schedules, so they couldn't even make the discussion. So if they got 2 hours notice, we got 0. So.
Got it. Yep.
Switching to federal, just a note, we're still obviously continuing to work the federal level. The congressionally directed spending process for next year is proceeding, although it's proceeding kind of blindly, I would say. So we are working, Joel and Andrew are working together to make sure that we get our 3 funding priorities listed in the CDS process. And again, those are renovation and upgrade to the jail facility, the interchange at 10 and 11, and Phase 2 development of the regional park. Senator Smith has not opened the window for their CDS process, but Senator Klobuchar and Representative Ammer have. So those are the 2 that we're working on. Also, Luke has put off his travel to May, so I am still working on getting him to come out and visit the jail, the intersection, and the park. So I'll let you all know when that happens, and that'll be good to see that happen. And then I think the last thing I would note is if you're tracking, it's kind of a weird good news, bad news. I guess the bad news is we didn't get congressionally directed spending funding this current year. I'll call it fiscal year 25 in the federal level. The good news is we're not stuck in limbo, because all of the projects, including the ones that were here locally, City of Becker, for example, Foley, for example, all of those projects, and I think Big Lake had one too, they're all frozen because the continuing resolution for the Congress only continues prior federal spending, does not include the congressionally directed spending that was approved by Congress. And in fact, it was deliberately and intentionally zeroed out as part of a budget saving measure from the federal Congress. So our colleagues are sitting there thinking they had money and they don't. We were fortunate that most of our significant funding, including the $24 million for the overpass, came the prior year, so I'll call it fiscal year 24. However, even that is being looked at with additional cost constraints in mind, and so Andrews had to go through several extra hoops to continue the project in Zimmerman. We thought it was going to be a major issue, like short-term, like we're talking weeks. We probably now have until May to get cleared at the federal level to continue with that project. I would say there's a fairly reasonable chance that we may have to elevate our concerns for continuing the Zimmerman interchange project all the way up to the congressional level, the senator level, just to get it cleared, even though it was prior year approved. So very, very dynamic process going on. So you have the prior year projects, which ostensibly should be funded, appropriated, moving forward. They're being reviewed. You have current year projects, which are not included in the the continuing resolution, and you have future year projects that they're just starting to basically consider. So a very, very dynamic process at the federal level.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danielowski.
thank you. On that note, it is frustrating for these smaller communities that, like, I'll speak for Big Lake. They had $1 million that was approved to go towards updating their wastewater treatment plant. So it is frustrating. That's a lot of money on a small community to lose out on. So hopefully it'll work its way through because it's a much-needed investment to upgrade that. And I'm sure it's no different in Becker, no different for any other small community.
Well, and, you know, not that you've asked or paid for my guessing, but if I was going to throw a dart at the dartboard, I would probably see that the fiscal year 25 projects will get top priority to be funded in 26, and then 26 projects will either be delayed or demurred completely. That's my speculation. It's kind of what we heard out in DC, which is we're going to fund what we said we were going to fund first. So we could see a significant delay here, which I think also feeds into the strategy we talked to our folks out in DC about, which is to look beyond just the congressionally directed spending, specifically for the projects that can't wait. And the one project that we feel can't wait is probably some of the jail renovations. So I think it was really brilliant of the board to think outside the box and not limit yourself to just the CDS project, financially $7 million, but also for funding. So that was, I think, a good move. You know, the park project, we obviously want to continue, but if it gets delayed or we're limited to going after state funds, we know there's other opportunities. The intersection, we can go into design. We're in there for a bonding bill, but the federal project for the jail is, it's either there or it's at this dais that we have to come up with the money. So the last thing I just want to note, did have a chance to go with Commissioner Felber and sit down with Becker Township and the city of Becker. I think it's the first time they'd been in the room together in a while, from what I could pick up.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about the County State Aid Highway 23 issue. I'm going to be putting together a report for the board to try to summarize the positions of the town and the city. And then Commissioner Felber's requested that we have a brief workshop on it at the next meeting to review my report. And the issue for you is fairly clean. A prior board, in other words, even, you know, we're talking a year ago, made a decision. So it's a separate legislative action. It's not part of what you'd call Robert's Rules, you know, session. We had a closed session. So a prior board supported moving ahead with the project. There was a factual error in the report to the board that we want to clarify for this board, and then you can decide if you want to reconsider the project, basically. So that'll be the fact issue, and I'll try to put the facts together from the town and the city's perspective. I think that would be it, unless you have any other questions. I would also note that with respect to the moment of silence, I'll keep the board updated as is appropriate for that particular issue. And then the last thing is the county attorney interviews for that process. I've had 2 commissioners indicate interest in sitting on the interview panel. It was Commissioner Gray and Commissioner Felber. I would like to firm that up if I can with you right now. I'm looking at April 3rd as the hold date for interviews. So if you would, 1, check your calendars, and 2, if you guys would do a little bit of arm wrestling and tell me which 2 will be participating, we'd like to lock that in. And then after Friday, when the solicitation closes, I'll give you an email update on the number of candidates.
You said April 3rd?
April 3rd.
I'm very open on the 3rd.
I am too.
I'm fine with you two.
I'm fine too.
Gee, thank you.
Yeah, we did.
You guys, yeah.
And then nobody fought us for it.
Again.
Yeah.
And
I'm fine with volunteering commissioners.
Yep.
So usually usually it's voluntold, but yeah, no.
There's no arm wrestling involved.
Thank
in
you
this.
so much.
I know.
For volunteering.
Yes.
And then just the last note, our IT director finalist did accept an offer of employment. it's cleared background, and so Drew will be starting with us on the 23rd of April. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to the existing IT staff, and in particular to Brian Kelke, Jake Primus, and Adam, who's in the back here listening, as well as to Brian Kamen, who have really kind of created a transition leadership team and have done just a superb job. They're going to continue that obviously for another month, but look forward to it. And I'll create some opportunities for you to either chat with Drew or meet him one-on-one as he transitions in. And if his time and schedule allows, he'll be also integrating on a limited basis prior to that. Also, thanks to Tammy for a great process. I mean, she's an amazing HR director. You already know that, and really helps to make it easier for everybody else.
Okay. Thank you, Administrator Messelt. We'll move on to regular agenda. Item number 1. Mark Schneider, consider an application for interim use permit for Occasional Event Center. Morning, Mark.
Mr. Chair, fellow commissioners, thank you. These are recommendations from the February 20th Planning Advisory Commission. The first item for your consideration is the application for an interim use permit for occasional special events for Carol and Anthony Zimmerman. On this request, on March 10th, staff issued a notice violation to the property owners. They did not have a copy of their farm winery license, and essence making their property in violation of the terms of their conditional use permit. In light of that violation, the applicant is working with the Department of Public Safety to resolve that issue, and I think they had the inspection and that license should be moving forward. But staff is going to ask the board to table this to date no later than May 9th to give us time to kind of clean up and organize everything on this interim use permit application.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to table this item until no later than May 9th to come back before us.
Is here May 5th?
It's just,
May 5th on the,
If I can, yeah, just a clarification, to table, it's supposed to be to a date and time certain. So
Okay.
our recommendation would be May 5th. Am I okay with that, Don? All right.
All right, I would agree to that adjustment.
We have a motion by Commissioner Danielowski. Is
I'll
there-
second that.
Commissioner Felber seconds. Any further discussion?
No discussion on table items.
No, no discussion on
No
this.
discussion table items.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, number 2, Mark Schneider. Consider a application for conditional use permit amendment as modified by Planning Advisory Commission.
Okay, this is also from Carol and Anthony Zimmerman, a request to amend the conditions of their existing conditional use permit for a farm winery. The same issue that arose on the previous request. We did observe that they did not have the farm winery license in place. Staff then sent a notice of violation to the property owner, informing them of a violation, and extended the 60-day decision on this to a date no later, I think it was May 9th is the decision date. So on this one, I'm also requesting the board table this to a date of May 5th, no later than.
Mr. Chair, if I can make a couple of comments before we table it. When we first went through this conditional use permit, I suggested that we needed to add music the first time, and we didn't, and that's been one of their violations. And when I'm looking at this one, it says no amplified music. I think that that's also unrealistic. I mean, somebody's going to need at least a microphone, probably for the singer, that kind of a thing. Some sort of a decibel thing, I think, would be more appropriate. And then also, this is getting really, really big for a 5-acre property. Other than that, just something to think about between now and then, I guess.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to table this item until May 5th. Or date uncertain, is that how you want it?
He said 9th.
Date certain,
A date certain, May 5th.
May 5th.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Danielowski, and a second by Commissioner Felber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Just one footnote, because this is an active application, I would suggest that the county board refrain from conversation, email, phone calls, dais comments. Keep them to the record so that it's clear that you're going to be evaluating this in an open and deliberative manner on May 5th. And if necessary, please refer all comments, emails, letters to me and to Dawn, and we'll keep the record to make sure that all of those are considered appropriately. So, and I know Commissioner Felber, yours were related to the application that you read as part of the action, so that's fine. But
Yeah, stop there.
You got your hand slapped. Moving on, number 3, consider approval of conditional use permit for a personal storage unit, storage structure. Mark?
Okay. We're looking for a motion for a conditional use permit for a personal storage building with the following 5 conditions and findings of fact made by the Planning Advisory Commission on February 20th.
I would make a motion that we approve.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Felber, second by Commissioner Schumacher. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, Mark.
Number 4, this is an ordinance amendment. Consider recommended changes to the Sherburne County zoning ordinance regarding the Board of Adjustment. So we're looking for an action to approve or deny or other the proposed changes to Sherburne County zoning ordinance, section 18. That's administration and enforcement, subdivision 3.2, and it's a creation of membership for the Board of Adjustment to include 1 member of the Board of Adjustment who's also a member of the Planning Commission. Currently, the ordinance states 2 members from the Planning Advisory Commission serve on the Board of Adjustment. Staff is looking for a modification to make it 1. And the Planning Advisory Commission did recommend denial of this. And their statement was that they want to make sure that we're getting more qualified members to the Board of Adjustment.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danielowski.
I had a question. Are you having trouble filling this spot off of the Planning Commission, or why the request to reduce?
Yep.
One
So it says
from
that
2 to 1.
representatives have to be also members of the Planning Advisory Commission. And right now, we only have 1 member of the Planning Advisory Commission who can serve on, who's serving on the Board of Adjustment. We had 2, but one of the townships, pulled that person out of the seat for Planning Commission, so we're non-compliant with our ordinance right now, as the Board of Adjustment currently is structured. State law only requires 1 member of the Planning Commission be a representative on the Board of Adjustment. We're just trying to align with what the state rules are and bring our ordinance in compliance with our current situation.
And nobody else is interested on the Planning Commission to serve in that capacity?
Well, we've already appointed, so people are appointed for a 3-year term to the Board of Adjustment. So right now, we do not have a board that is compliant with our requirements for compliant with our ordinance.
So when you have someone step down, you don't have any process to,
So we had a member that was removed from the Planning Advisory Commission that served on the Board of Adjustment. So the township pushes forward their person for the Planning Commission, and a town board removed a representative that served on the Board of Adjustment. So we had been compliant with this for years, but when that happened, we realized we were not compliant with the ordinance and wanted to make this change. So we don't have, under current conditions, we have people who have been appointed to the role of Board of Adjustment by the county board. And their term, we do only have 1 Planning Commission member on there.
I guess my concern would be that by limiting this, you could potentially limit the experience that could serve in that capacity when you have 2 as versus just 1. That's just my comments.
I think that was the discussion that
what-
the Planning Commission had that night in regards to it. They're just not getting enough people that the Board of Adjustment sees mainly issues that are in the outstate of Sherburne County, and they were looking for more individuals that were qualified, that were on town boards, that were engaging in the subject. People that were on the Board of Adjustment weren't engaged in the matter, at all, because they didn't seem like they cared.
Well,
So,
Mr. Chair. if I
Mr.
can-
Chair, I was just gonna say, so what, if we turn this down, what would be the process to reconcile the Board of Adjustment so it comes into compliance?
And I'm not certain about that, but let me just kind of think my way through it, and maybe I can get a little bit of guidance also. So right now, we're non-compliant with the ordinance. The way the Board of Adjustment currently sits, our ordinance says that we have to have 2 members from the Planning Advisory Commission serve on that board. We only have 1, so we're non-compliant. So how do we address that non-compliance? Ways to address that non-compliance would be potentially removing someone from the Board of Adjustment and then reposting to try and get one of our representatives from the Planning Commission to serve on that board.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
And
What I like about this is that both of these are appointed boards, appointed by this board. I think that going back to the statutory requirements for the Board of Adjustment gives us more diversity of people on there. It avoids power concentration within small appointed boards. So I think it's a really good idea. And like I say, it does bring it in line with what the state statute absolutely requires. So I think that that's a good idea, since we do have to have a Board of Adjustment. So I would motion that we pass this. We accept the change to the ordinance.
We have a motion on the floor. Motion dies for lack of a second.
Mr. Chairman, I did speak with Dan about eliminating the Board of Adjustment because it seems so cumbersome and problemsome, but that wasn't a possibility.
No.
But you guys would probably have that great idea before me, but I did spend several hours trying to make them disappear.
The statute specifically says that when you create, I'm not going to try to quote it because I don't have it written down here, but the gist of it is once you create a zoning requirements, you have to have a Board of Adjustment to address those zoning requirements.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and I can address Commissioner Felber's comment as well. That is, the statute that Commissioner Felber is referencing is 394-27, subdivision 1, that does talk about whenever the Board of County Commissioners has adopted official controls, which can include zoning ordinances and comp plans, that it shall at the same time adopt controls to create a Board of Adjustment by ordinance. I believe the options for the board appear to be either, and I understand that there's a failed motion for what the first option would be, and the second option would be to readdress removal requirements within Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment. Right now, as I understand it, the bylaws for Planning Commission do not contemplate this type of circumstance. There is, I believe within the bylaws, reference to if someone resigns or the seat is vacated, but not a situation where there is removal. So this board would have to consider, if they are not going to approve the statutory limitations, then what that would look like, and essentially would be then removal of an individual who possibly was then also appointed by Planning Commission to serve, or excuse me, by Township to serve on Planning Commission.
Mr. Chair, in interest of moving toward discussion, I will second, so we can have proper discussion of the motion.
We have a motion for acceptance?
I'd like clarification on how that works when there was a failed motion.
Yeah.
Well, can I redo the motion?
You can redo the motion.
I will once again motion that we accept this change to the Sherburne County zoning ordinance, section 18, to administration enforcement, subdivision 3-2.
And I will second.
Second by Commissioner Hulls. Now we can have further discussion.
So I'm confused on a couple of things here. One is, and help me with, so we had 2 members that were part of the Planning Commission as part of the Board of Adjustment. One of those members was removed by one of the townships.
The township specifically appointed somebody else to that position.
They appointed someone else to that position that was not part of the Planning Commission, which is where the non-compliance came in.
Correct.
Okay, that clarifies that for me, thank you. I guess my discussion on this is if we're bringing this in alignment with state statutory requirements, I don't have as much of an issue with that as long as it doesn't preclude us from having 2 members of the planning commission, right? It doesn't say only one, correct?
I think if you wanted to, you could, since it's under other, just that last sentence, to include at least one member of the Board of Adjustment. Just add those 2 words, at least. Then it's clear that your indication is you want more than one, but we have to meet the statutory minimum.
And the statutory minimum, or how the statutory language reads, says provided that one member of such Board of Adjustment shall also be a member of any planning commission.
And Mr. Chair, we have had it as 2. The only thing that seems to be the problem is we did not have language in regards to if a township would remove that person. So to me, it's like, I'm not quite clear on why we just aren't going to create some language to address that issue.
Well, if I may, I mean, I think that to a certain extent here, we're dealing with what the voters elected the people in the township to make their decisions. The people in the township made a decision here that affected our appointments. And then we've gone ahead and we've reappointed somebody to that position, right? So, if it's, the township removing somebody is the voters, basically. Local voters, which is, this should have a great say in this, because this is all, we're all talking about township zoning here, so you want to make sure the townships have their voice. So that's fine. But, and we've already appointed somebody, so we're going to fire them because, somebody else made a decision that didn't affect them. Putting it in something with at least one member, yeah, that, I suppose, if you want to do it later. But like I say, I like the idea that, it's not just these appointed guys that end up running all the different boards.
So,
If I may, Mr. Chair, the concern that I've got, though, is we're not fixing the issue.
No.
Because let's say, for example, another, whichever township has the one current member of the planning commission and the Board of Adjustment, if they decide to remove theirs, then we have 0.
We're out of compliance again.
Right.
We'd have to refill that one. We'd have to be careful to refill that one with somebody from the planning. Then the planning board would have to, we wouldn't appoint somebody until the planning board had the opportunity to vote for who they wanted to put in that one position. That would be, that's the key component, I think, of this whole thing, is making sure we don't appoint without them.
Well, we did it once before, apparently.
Obviously, yeah.
We did.
Right.
Well, the other challenge you're going to have is if you would have rejected this particular seat, you're basically requiring that township to appoint somebody to both boards. So by having at least one, there's some flexibility of it changing over time, or greater flexibility. And that would be, you could have rejected the applicant from the town, but then you'd say to that town, your seat is a double seat. Where this way, if it's at least one, it could change over time who double represents.
Yeah.
Well, but how is that any different than if the township that currently has the member that's on both boards decides to remove that? Then we would be telling that township, no, you have to appoint someone to both boards.
Correct. We would have to force the same conversation, but that conversation is statutory. Your ordinance, you have some discretion. That's the difference. So if it does happen that the town with that current seat does have a vacancy, then I think it forces a conversation at the Board of Adjustment and with the town. You are correct.
and Mr. Chair, I'm just curious as to, in the past, how this even got developed this way, that there was 2 people from the Planning Commission. What was the thought? Do we have any clue as to what the reasoning was?
Lynn, you get to jump on that one, so.
Going back to 2019, right?
Lynn's like our institutional memory now, so.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
If my recollection serves me correctly, we went from 5 members of the Board of Adjustment to 7 members a number of years ago, trying to get additional people involved and have more ideas and thoughts on that board. And if my recollection serves, at that time is when I think we went to 2 members from Planning Commission instead of 1, because we added those 2 additional. Off the top of my head, I think that's how this came into play. And someone's term was up recently, and again, the township chose not to have that person be back on planning commission, and that's why we're at where we're at. But I think the idea of saying at least one member would solve the issue and bring us in compliance. And, you know, we could have future discussions about whether or not maybe we want to look at the board appointing 2 members from the Board of to the Board of Adjustment from Planning Commission, and then those other seats could potentially then be where people could apply for them. But maybe in the future, you know, and at the end of the year is when different people are up on these boards, we can look at maybe changing some of that to address these issues that we hadn't run into in the past but are running into now.
And Mr. Chair, it's my experience that we have struggled in the past too, to get people to serve on the Board of Adjustment. Whereas,
Difficult board to be on. You have to tell people no occasionally.
yes,
And a lot of thought and deliberation goes into the decisions on this. So it is a challenging board to be on, and you need to be pretty informed of the different issues so that you understand whether or not something should be approved or what conditions should maybe be placed on it.
yes, and by having 2 of 7 from a planning commission, I think helps facilitate that potential problem. And it also requires some education in regards to
Correct.
what the processes are, and some training that over time, at least from my observation, people haven't been willing to engage in that effort.
And staff has been working, we are talking to the county attorney's office about having an additional training or 2 with both the DNR and the county attorney's office for Board of Adjustment and Planning Commission. We have a number of new members on Board of Adjustment, and there is a lot of learning that needs to be done to understand how that board works and all the stuff that you need to look at. And so we are looking at doing those trainings. We did them about 3 years ago, but again, we've had a number of different people come and some leave, and so we need to continue doing that training.
And if I, just the one comment I would like to make, historically, the Board of Adjustment, going back, decades, has had a lot of representation from our townships. Township supervisors have generally served, made up almost half the board majority of the time. So you do have that kind of experience with township matters. Many times our variances are on right-of-ways or property lines, and they have a lot of experience there. Currently, I think we have 4 representatives from townships serving on the Board of Adjustment, then we have 3 at large. So when we increase that number from 5 to 7, we increase the opportunity for more people to participate in the Board of Adjustment or to serve on that Board of Adjustment. And so just under this circumstance, we didn't get a planning commission member, but we still do have knowledgeable people that participate on these boards, and the townships do a lot of that work for us.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and realistically, with the last couple of appointments that I'm aware of to the board, or that I can think of to the board, we put in a former township chairman who has spent a lot of time in energy in actually property development, and we put another person in who works in the construction industry. So I think that having that, maybe you don't have the time to be on your township board at this point in time, and in the planning commission also, but just being able to concentrate your efforts and your knowledge and your experience on the Board of Adjustment, I find that's also extremely valuable to have that greater diversity when, this is a big board. This is, you come here, you have what, you can only appeal to the courts after this, right? So, this is a big deal for people's properties. And I totally disagree with the fact that we're not putting informed, educated people on it. Maybe some additional training might be nice on some regulations, but the last couple of appointments we made to that board are people who know the industry of building.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, on the statute here that I pulled up with the Assistant Administrator. Subsection 2 says the Board of Adjustment shall consist of at least 3 members. Has it been considered to go back down to 3 members? The more qualified members, just like Mr. Felber is saying.
Mr. Chair, I was just curious, what was the conversation? We have a recommendation from our Planning Advisory Commission to deny this recommended change. What more? You were, I'm sure, privy to that conversation
It's all in the
as a
packet.
liaison? I understand that, but for the public?
Well, I think the consensus I got from members that are in the member that's both on the Board of Adjustments and the Planning Commission, the one that we have now, he felt that on the Board of Adjustments, they're intelligent individuals and stuff, but they're not engaging at all. They do not speak out, they don't talk to and I guess he's looking for more people that were township supervisors and things of that nature. I think that was the main thing that they were looking for, is just, the engagement wasn't there. They might have 7 people, but 3 or 4 of them were doing all the work.
Mr. Chair, to Commissioner Schumacher's point, I know over time, we've always, we have 5 districts. It's kind of been the thought process that we get some representation from across the the county. So going down to 3, I think would really hamper that opportunity. That is my recollection of, why we were at 5 and then increasing it to 2, based on maybe some better roaming representation. That was my understanding of some of that history.
We call that at large, just so you know, not roaming.
Large.
Mr. Chair, so we do have a motion and a second on the table. I have a question on a potential amendment, a friendly amendment to the motion. So, and so here's my question. One part is, so I don't know whether we need to vote it down and consider this, or could one potential friendly amendment be to adjust it to at least?
Okay.
The second is could we direct staff to look at the nomination process to try to come up with language that would, while we would be required by statute to have at least one, relook at the nomination process and see if there's a way to rewrite that so that it would drive us toward having more than one. And I don't know if you can do that all in the same motion or not.
Yeah, I mean, if the maker of the motion agrees to it, then you could second it again.
And Mr. Chair, with that, thank you, with that thought, would you consider adding that we do something to address the situation if someone is replaced from
That would be
the
the intent.
town board, that we would have that process like we do with the other?
I think that would be part of it.
Okay, thank you.
But it's, the motion, it's
The difference in replacement is that if we are replacing past the statutory requirement, okay, if there's a statutory requirement for these boards, that's the one person. So if we lose that one person, we absolutely have to replace from that. Anything else is discretionary, right? So I would be okay with at least, so that a future board could change it, but I'm not okay with directing staff to absolutely change it. I mean, we have had people step up, show up, want to do the job. Perhaps maybe they should talk more when they're there, but I mean, if they are showing up and voting, I mean, every board, somebody talks more than the other people, right? So that's part of the deal, right? So, and the new people probably aren't gonna speak up as much the first few meetings, because they're gonna be trying to get their feet underneath them and figure out what they want to talk about. But it's a 3-year appointment. This board, in how this board functions, could be a whole lot different at the end of those 3 years. I mean, you get more confidence the more often you do it. That's just part of being on any sort of a public board.
So I don't know who's playing parliamentarian today, but
We'll figure it out.
if we vote down this particular motion, are we allowed to make a second motion?
Yes.
So just continuing discussion. My concern is, without addressing the nomination procedure, we're setting ourselves up to be in this situation in the future. Right? I don't think our nomination procedure is adequate. That's my concern. That's why I think it needs to be looked at.
How? Exactly.
Because our nomination procedure does not preclude us from being in this same situation again, even with only one person on board. Yes, we would have to replace that person, but we would be doing the same thing we just said we didn't want to do because there were two people. And I get there's a statutory requirement, but I don't think our procedures are adequate to address the situation. That's why I want it looked at. So,
So what would we write it as? To ensure there's at least one member?
And that is how the language is currently written. It does read at least
Yeah.
one member from the Planning Advisory Commission. And then would it be, for the interview, or, when openings occur, would it be something along the lines of preferred qualifications, serves on Planning Advisory Commission
Yep.
procedurally as we're interviewing,
I agree with you. I think that
or serves on other boards, appointed boards?
that has to be addressed, the qualifications and stuff of that.
so I'll call the question.
All right.
Himself, yeah.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Felber and a second by Commissioner Hulls. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Here we go.
Motion.
I will make I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended change with the addition of adding at least to the language, and then additionally directing staff to look at the nomination procedure, to attempt to rewrite the procedure such that we would not be in a position to not have at least one member of the Planning Commission be part of the Board of Adjustment, but also attempt to ensure we have, attempt to write the language such that it would
How about the word encourage?
encourage more than one
Yep.
member of the Planning Commission to be part of the Board of Adjustment.
I might want to pare that down for you in our minutes, just because it's a very long motion, but,
It's all recorded, you're fine.
all right.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hulls.
And I'll second that. Quick question. That does address how we're here at the moment. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hulls. Commissioner Danielowski seconds. Is there any further discussion?
For reference, Minnesota State Statute 394-27 is what we're referencing, which is the creation of the Board of Adjustment for anybody who's watching this that wants to review it as what I'm looking at here.
All right.
But no other discussion, just
Thank you.
reference.
We have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank you for yours.
Thanks, Mark. And then receive and review and accept the Auditor Treasurer's monthly report for February 2025. Lorraine Rupp. Morning, Lorraine. Sorry to make you wait so long.
Sorry, we're ahead of schedule. We're ahead of schedule. We're fine. We're gonna keep that.
We are.
Is this working okay? You guys can hear me fine with this? Is your light on?
It's not on.
Let's see, didn't sound like it was on. That sounds like it's on. Okay. Not that my voice doesn't carry anyway, but enclosed in your packet is the February trial balance. I'm gonna have Keisha advance that quick for me. Go to the next one. There you go. Okay, that's the February trial balance prepared by Accounting Manager Sherlyn Kapsner. It includes ARPA funds of $2,103,210.77 and the Recorder's Compliance Fund of $222,397, as we have already done the Recorder's Compliance transfers for 2025. The next 3 pages are the investment reports as prepared by my finance officer, Brenda Davis. Investment earnings are above budget by $171,168.72 at month end. Interest earnings year-to-date total $571,168.72, compared to $464,639.97 last year. We're ahead of last year by $106,528.75. The next couple of reports are also regarding investments and our allocation. And one more, Keisha. And where our funds are locally, actually financial institutions that they're in. So the next report is your budget to actual report. That is by function, and that is modified accrual. That's why the investment earnings show as they are with the modified accrual entry for market value. 2025 property taxes, the tax file and valuation notice were sent to the vendor for processing. They did go out last week. I actually just received mine yesterday, so it's taken a little bit for them to hit mailboxes, but they are out there. So we are getting some phone calls and actually a considerable amount of payments coming in right away, so we appreciate that. The 2025 tax statements and the 2025 assessment valuation notices were sent in the same envelope to help us with some postage costs. We are well ahead of the statutory deadline of March 31st. This year's parcel count was 40,521 tax statements. This is a 0.062% increase over the 2024 numbers, or about 25 more tax statements. So not a whole lot as far as tax statements. I will provide more information next month on the tax rate sheets and the annual report updates. The 2025 property tax statements actually are available on our website if people need to print them and have not received them yet in the mail. So they can go to the website and actually print their 2025. This next report is our 2024 gravel tax report. This is a one-page annual report, and it's included for your information. We currently have a fund balance of $1,503,163.44 in the gravel tax fund. These funds are to be used for the restoration of abandoned pits, quarries, or deposits located within the county. If there are not abandoned pits, quarries, or deposits located within the county, this portion of tax shall be used for any other unmet reclamation need or for conservation or other environmental needs per Minnesota Statute 298.75. Sorry, Mike went out on that. So also we are continuing to work on our 2024 audit. Clifton Larson Allen will be back in a couple of weeks in April to do some additional work on site. I also gave you copies of the results from the township election that was held on March 11th. Those were on at each year's statements. It wasn't available, obviously, by the time this packet went out. There are copies in the back if anyone in the audience needs those copies. That is my report for this month. Any questions?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brad. No, you go ahead.
Mr. Schumacher.
In the Star News, the report came out for the delinquent property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of delinquent property taxes higher or lower than our average or normal? I'm just saying it was in the paper published.
Yep, we have actually 12 pages in the Star News. It is about average for us. It hasn't swung too far from where it was before. You'll notice several, and that is just the 2024 delinquent. There are obviously people that have older than that, that are going through the forfeiture process. But it is a required notice, and we are about average. So. Mhm.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair, thank you. I just had a couple of questions, Lorraine. I was just curious, do we have any thoughts about offering, I had seen that Stearns County offers the ability for you to sign up to get your property tax statement online and go through the whole process online as versus getting a mailed copy?
We are working on a process for that. We are working on the ability to do that for some of our larger taxpayers. The way it is set up right now, it is actually a lot of extra work for us to create that for individuals. That's why we can do it through Beacon. So if they're looking for it that way, they can do it through Beacon and print your statement. So it is available to someone who wants to do that. But the process to create that additional file to have it available electronically, we do have to follow some statutory items on that.
I was just curious, I'm assuming that would be a one-time setup process, and then I'm just curious where Stearns County thought the cost savings would be to offer that as versus the mailing. And then I'm just also curious on the lag time. Is that a normal lag time from when the post office received the property tax statements from our vendor? And almost, I mean, I just got mine yesterday as well. That just seemed to be,
It does seem to be a little bit long. We were notified Tuesday that that our envelopes were literally delivered to the post office. So I do know that some people did receive theirs by Friday. Like I said, City of Big Lake is also where I live. Some people got them Friday and Saturday. Some people did not get them until Monday. So it's a little bit more of a lag, I would say.
okay. I was just curious if there's any way to kind of have that conversation, because I think it was 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, you had indicated that everything had got sent off to our.
Off to the vendor for
right.
preparation.
Right.
Yep.
And did the preparation time then follow a good timeline?
It did.
Okay.
It did. We, of course, do a lot of proofing. We want to make sure that they're correct. There were a lot of last-minute changes at the state level that had to come down. So that, we are well ahead of our statutory deadline, like I said, of March 31st. We had a few other things in our office that we were pushing it to get them out a little bit earlier. So one being our property tax person was going to be put on jury duty, so
Yeah.
we kind of wanted to make sure she was around when this process was going on, so.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Also, we should send out a kudos to Palmer Township for looking like they had the most voter turnout at 7.14% in their elections.
Yes.
So kudos to Palmer Township.
Yep, they had a Facebook write-in campaign was going on there, so I think that did spark their turnout a little bit.
Was that a declared, I mean, was that a?
There were, I believe, what are there, only 2 that actually wrote in.
Okay.
So it did help their turnout a little bit, but I don't think there were, there were
I
only
didn't
2 write-ins.
realize that Facebook elections was a thing.
Pardon?
I didn't realize Facebook elections was a thing.
Well, that's how people
They were
communicate.
promoting, yeah. Thank you.
Yep, yep, so, okay.
We need a motion to
Any other-
accept the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Holds makes the motion, Commissioner Felber seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noreen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, yeah.
We want a break, or are we going to recess and go into community health?
Okay, we just-
See none, we're going right into community health. Okay, we're recessing the meeting, open the community health board meeting.
You want a motion?
Nope.
I need a motion to approve the regular proposed agenda. I would make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nicole?
I think there's one item before my update, minutes.
Oh, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the community health board meeting minutes from January 21st, 2025.
Second.
Commissioner Danielowski makes the motion, Commissioner Schumacher seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Now, Nicole,
Good
roll.
morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Commissioners. I have kind of my typical roadshow, it feels like, for the past year. I've been talking about some of the foundational responsibilities and activities. So just a couple of areas that I'll focus on today. One of those is the communicable disease control. So there are a variety of activities that fall under this area. Certainly communications and social media and timely updates to folks that need to have the information around communicable diseases. We work with partners, particularly the Department of Health, different healthcare coalitions in our healthcare systems, and even some work across counties as people move across counties and have contacts outside of their immediate area. We definitely get lab reports from the health systems and/or the Department of Health. In particular, we help manage tuberculosis, hepatitis, and HIV. You may have gotten alerts. We assure partners, so through the HAN or the Health Alert Network. So if there's statewide things that we need to brief partners on, you'll see an alert come through there. We assure appropriate treatment, so some of our staff go out and ensure that folks are taking medication if they've been diagnosed with tuberculosis. The Minnesota Department of Health does most of our lab, but they do ask us to do assistance when we are doing contact tracing. So depending on what a person or where a person has been, we may help collect evidence and reach out to people to see who may have been in contact with that person who's been infected. And then lastly, we do try to connect to other services. People typically need a lot more support than just what health can offer, and so we may make referrals to social services or food shelves or other supports within the community. So a little bit what this looks like for us. These are just some of those things that have kind of been wrapping up through this winter season. So chickenpox, we certainly have them, or varicella. Not very many cases in 2024 in Sherburne County. The state had about 203. Vaccination rate is pretty high here in Sherburne County. So that's about 94%. So that's a good uptake in that. Pertussis or whooping cough had an extremely large year of cases, so over 3,000 in Minnesota, and we had 59 here in Sherburne. Vaccination rate a little bit lower here in Sherburne County for that one. And then measles, there's certainly been a lot of conversation about measles in the news. We've had our own outbreaks in 2024 in Minnesota. There was a rural area and a metro area, none here in Sherburne County. Vaccination rate overall is pretty high here in Sherburne as well, with about 96%. And when I say that overall vaccination rate, I would say that it does differ when we do different age groups. So if we're looking at 0 to 2-year-olds, we may see 70% because of the timing in those vaccinations. If we look at zip codes, we may also see some different things depending on what access is or what people's preferences are. And then on the bottom is just a couple of things that I took from the first page, so really working with our health systems around these disease processes. We offer routine vaccinations here at the Government Center for those who qualify. And then we really just try to stay up to date on situation awareness, like what's been going on in Texas. And then just one other slide about the contagiousness of measles, just for your information, how that compares to some other things that we do see. They predict that it could affect, 16 people with one infected person. So that's why they really are looking at that contact tracing and trying to limit contact with others, just because it does spread very quickly. The other area that I thought I would focus on is the chronic disease and injury prevention. So there's a variety of activities that fall under here, and this is kind of setting the stage for the education session later this afternoon. But again, you'll always see timely data and communication on most of our activities, identifying partners and plans. Absolutely, we don't do this work alone. Third, addressing commercial tobacco use, and that is important because it's still listed as the leading preventable cause of disease, disability, and death in the U.S. So called out specifically for us to address.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danilowski.
Thank you. Quick question on this, Nicole. When we talk about commercial tobacco use, has that been updated to include vaping?
It does contain vaping. The wording is still kind of tobacco-focused and maybe smoking inherent, but it really does encompass all of those nicotine products.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
The fourth one is about improving rates of healthy eating and exercise. Certainly, those are both impactful to people's health. And the last one is to coordinate. No one agency, system, or committee can address chronic disease and injury. So we really need to coordinate to get that work done across different systems. Just a little bit of information that kind of goes along with that chronic disease and injury prevention. There's a new dashboard from the Department of Health. The link is on the bottom, and I'll make sure I send these out in the slides. They have two components, mortality data and natality. So I just pulled the leading cause of death, and this is 2020 data, and they will be updating this soon. They just don't have it updated up to 23 yet. But Sherburne County falls right in line with the state leading causes. There's certainly the unknowns that always tend to be the first, and then cancer and heart disease. And then secondly, just we can also monitor a lot of factors around births and the maternal conditions. So smoking, low birth weights, premature deliveries, C-sections, that data is available now to look at by county and statewide. So we fall pretty much right in line with the state of Minnesota. About 7% of our maternal folks have smoked, and that is not updated, Commissioner Danilowski, to include vaping. The questions are not there within the health system yet, but I know they're moving towards that. And low birth weight and tobacco typically go hand in hand, and we see that we're just a little bit below the state average for that. Some upcoming events. So the Substance Use Prevention Coalition meetings are held monthly, some in person, some by Zoom, so you're welcome to attend those. And then there's also an event in the Zimmerman area on April 3rd where they're just going to walk through some of the substance use or misuse that's going on in the community and offer some supports and resources to community members. A couple other opportunities that I'll just kind of continue to invite members of the board to attend. The Statewide Health Services Advisory Committee, or SHAC. Those are at least 4 times a year. Commissioner Gray is our primary commissioner on there, and then Commissioner Schumacher, you're a secondary, so welcome to attend those. Our First Steps Joint Powers Board, that's the 4 counties who do home visiting together. We meet 4 times a year as well. And welcome to attend those. STIR, Stronger Together, Inspiring Resiliency, really everything mental well-being and mental health from a community perspective here in Sherburne. So a really great group of folks that gather routinely to help initiate different wellness activities. And then always open to board members or administration to connect with us about ideas, concerns, if you want to do some shadow visits, whether with WIC or home visiting or a car seat installation, or if there's data that you would like us to dig into. And then later this morning, we'll be talking about the commercial tobacco licensing ordinance and also tobacco-free ground exploration. And then a few other items that will come later as we get some direction from the board today. Questions about anything here?
Go ahead.
Just a real quick side note, Nicole reminded me of something. Going back to legislative issues, we're trying to set up a opportunity for our state representatives to come here and spend time with Health and Human Services and see some of the challenges with the computer systems and the state computer systems. I was just thinking about that because you're talking about a lot of the related topics. So I forgot to mention that we're trying to get that scheduled as well. That would be for what we call the green screen challenges. So.
Perfect.
Anybody else? Mr. Schumacher, Commissioner Schumacher.
Yep. Instead of making it a scheduled meeting, we should have it an open invitation during business hours. Anytime you would want to come, be open. We'd love to help you see that. So don't lock them down.
And Mr. Chair, can we get copies of the slide? Thank you.
I'll get on my soapbox again, like I've said many a time. Anything we do behind this dais, in one way or another, affects public health. And it's not instant gratification, it's long-term ramifications that will save us money in the long run. So kudos to the Public Health Department for what they do and moving forward. I need a motion to accept the Public Health Commissioner's report.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Hull, second by Commissioner Danielowski. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Thank you again.
Nicole.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
We need a motion to adjourn the public health meeting.
Nope, we can simply adjourn it.
We're adjourned. Commissioners' reports, you want to take break or you want to do commissioner reports first?
Yeah, let's waddle through our reports.
Okay, who's going first?
I will, since no one else spoke up. All righty. All right, so I didn't last meeting go through what the various months like I try to do. It's Red Cross Month, Disabilities Awareness Month, Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, National Athletic Training Month, National Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, it's a big month, National Brain Injury Awareness Month, and that's a big one that I'm interested in, a National Breast Implant Awareness Month. So those are some of the months that we have, awareness months for this particular one. Things I've been doing. Okay, 310, I did sit through, on the Tri-County Solid Waste Board, we did authorize funding to have performances by the Climb Theater, which does educational theater for kids. We authorized those to be in the schools. I thought since we're authorized to be in the schools, I should know what the content of those actual plays were. So I sat through the Climb Theater reading on 310 for Reusable the Musical and Super Saver for K through 2. They were pretty good. I mean, and I think that they're good educational programs. I couldn't hear everything for Reusable the Musical, but I didn't hear anything that it was pretty good for what I could hear. There were some issues with the microphones on site. 310, the Sherburne CEC meeting. There was an awful lot we talked about there. A couple things I'm going to highlight. The Refuge Rangers has 77 youth and volunteers. That's getting to be a pretty big club. The possibility of 3 new clubs. And one of the bright spots, the Otsego Four Leaves had a Curds for Kids care packages. They donated 199 pounds of cheese through Ellsworth Creamy, donated to the Care Food Shelf, which is a really great program. Those are the kind of things you like to see the kids doing, that community awareness type stuff. Orac Township Day on 3/11. There was a lot of people there. Interest seems to be going up. The Metropolitan Emergency Services Board on 3/12. We talked about a lot of stuff. Probably the main one I'm going to highlight would be there are $7 million available now to map schools. We're trying to get all the schools mapped for emergency response. So if there's some sort of an incident in the schools, that the computer assist in the squad cars and for the ambulances and everybody else will actually have a map for that school while they're responding. That doesn't exist yet, and it's something that we definitely need. The MICA board, we just really talked about a lot of what's happening at the legislature, and we've kind of covered that already this morning, so I'm not going to go in more on that. You know, we're hoping, I should mention one thing, the Gold Line opens in St. Paul, and from the 22nd to the 28th, people can take that ride for free. So if you want to go over and ride the train in St. Paul.
It's actually a bus.
Bus, that's what I meant to say, I'm sorry.
Not a train.
Bus, train, I mean, they're similar. No,
Okay.
No, they're not similar. Okay, I meant to say bus. Anyhow, yeah. County 23 meeting, we've already gone over that. That was on 3/12. CMJTS, this was for the Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, which I just joined up this year. They had an 8-hour basic training with a board meeting worked into it. It was a pretty good deal. The facilitator was Alan Venegas from Amplify DMC, and it was really a really good training because at the end of the day, they actually did produce things that were going to be usable by the board for communication with the general public. For me personally, it was a really good chance to sit down with one of my new Joint Powers boards and really get familiar with the people who work there and the kind of work that they actually do, along with obviously the pre-reading that goes along with that. And they're working on, one of the big things is they're working on improving their grant writing capabilities, which is going to be important. They're trying to get to where they have more discretionary funding and less governmental funding. We're going to try to get more stuff coming from private, which that's something I always like to hear. The new AMC Solid Waste Board, excuse me, Advisory Committee met. There was a lot going on there. They had a great, fantastic PowerPoint on the history of solid waste, and that's available through AMC. There is a bill to prohibit solar and wind power scrap from going to the landfills, which I think is a really good idea. We need to put less stuff in the landfills. And once again, we had a lot of discussion about refuse to energy and where it sits in Minnesota and how it's really beneficial for solid waste management. So one thing I am personally working on now is I'm trying to find somebody to carry a bill to allow the state of Minnesota to use refuge to energy in the future so that we can make use of that particular greenhouse gas negative form of energy while improving our base power load. Obviously, this is a long-term project, so nothing's going to happen right away on that. Big Lake Community Fair I went to, there was a lot of good crowds there. A lot of people were there. We talked about the Big Lake Hockey Association a little bit before there. I was glad to see that they're making some really good progress towards getting an ice arena built in Big Lake. ETAC emerging issues. We talked, that was Energy Transition Advisory Committee, separate subcommittee for emerging issues. We're really looking at the future of nuclear and the future of refuse to energy in the state of Minnesota. Keep going back to that. That's gotten to be a big thing. The Great River Library Board, I had to sit through a meeting for that last night in preparation for my 3 hours of meetings tonight for the Great River Library Board, which one of other my new ones. And I've been working on getting through their big binder of stuff, so I'm really prepared for these meetings. And then last night I did go to the Becker Township meeting. I didn't plan to talk about anything, but they had some questions about the sirens, and they had some questions about speed studies, which I was able to help them with. So, and that's pretty much it.
You sure?
Yeah, I talked to some people.
Took up everybody else's time, so I mean.
Greg, what, did they talk about the turnback at all?
What's that?
Did they ever talk about the turnback?
On 93?
Yeah.
The 93 turnback is set up for a public meeting again on April 5th, I believe it is. I got it in my calendar.
With the town board?
So yeah, they're gonna have a meeting out on the road. They're gonna bring it back to the town board, and then it will be discussed and dealt with, and apparently they're trying to get our people there also.
Okay, thanks.
So that is progressing, yes.
Now you're done.
Now I'm done. I talked to somebody on the way in, but I'm not bringing that up.
I started with County Road 23 in Becker. I drove down that road. I had driven down that road since 1978. More fingers and toes than I have.
That's probably the last time it was redone, too.
Probably yeah, right there is 1978. So I did drive down there in 23, so I did that. I just want to make sure you know that was the first time since being on this board.
Noted.
And then the Rum River Watershed District, the Livonia Township annual meeting, which went very well. They're working to go to November elections. They did take a vote on that to bring that forward, so they're moving there. And then I'm going to drive out to this wine bar music venue because I've never driven down their road before either. But in the future, I'm going to drive down that road. Noted for Dawn, because I've never driven down that road either. So that will be moving forward. I might have forgot something, but we're good.
Andrew?
I had my first community corrections board meeting last week. That was a good meeting. And that's a good group of people, and it's a very interesting, very interesting meeting. Then also had a number of discussions regarding the Fair Board that I need to touch base with you on, Bruce. And then the last thing that I want to bring up, I was pretty disturbed this weekend, and I was a little reticent to bring it up and bring attention to it, but it ended up in the news anyway. And it was the number of, and I did have a discussion with, brief discussion with the sheriff about this, but the number of swatting events that happened over the weekend. And I just find it very disturbing that people think that that's acceptable. People are going to get hurt. And fortunately, you know, they were across the country. Doesn't look like anybody got hurt, but there was one as close as Wright County. And doesn't look like there were any in Sherburne County, but it's a serious situation, and it needs to be treated, the perpetrators need to be treated appropriately.
The other thing that we noted over the weekend, and so to the extent that you have conversations, extremely fast motorcycles. So really encourage people who ride motorcycles to slow down. It's been a law enforcement concern, and this weekend being nice, it really accelerated that as well.
Commissioner Danielowski.
Mr. Chair, mine is a little short, being as I had some cancellations of some of my scheduled meetings. I attended the APO meeting in St. Cloud, and also attended the Big Lake Township meeting. And the township basically approved, or had a public hearing and approved a vacation request of a drainage and utility easement. They set their road tour to be planned sometime in April, and that's basically a lot of what they had to discuss. And then the APO approved a lot of items in regards to publication of the 2025 through 2029 Regional Infrastructure Investment Plan, also considered the cost-sharing agreement that they have to develop the, what they call the Beltline that is vision to go around the St. Cloud area, so you don't have to drive through the St. Cloud area, because that's the only way to get through St. Cloud. So basically discussing how that is a long-term plan, and they need to stay hopefully committed to achieving that. And I did say, you might not be around to see it come, but you got to stay committed to the plan. So anyways, then the community fair that Greg mentioned, and also, Greg, can you send us a link in regards to the, what you're referring to on the, what board? The
History of solid
AMC?
waste?
Yes.
Yeah, I can try to do
AMC.
that.
Yes, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
And I think, other than attending to some constituent discussions and stuff, that was pretty much it for me. And I do agree with what Andrew said. Nobody should ever do a swatting on anybody, and I don't care what your thought process is.
If I may, real quickly on the swatting.
Greg wants to
I
talk
thought I
again.
was done, but do we have right now, I mean, talking about swatting, probably the elected officials that live inside of Sherburne County our addresses should show up as an alert. I'm not trying to get special treatment from the sheriff's department by doing that, but I think that our elected official, I mean, because you can put alerts on CAT, right? You can put something on this. So if somebody calls up and says that, you know, I'm holding hostages in my basement and I'm a member of Hamas and you should come shoot me, which is what they do when they're swatting. It's something similar to that. You know, there's something happening here, a violent domestic, and they try to get the SWAT team to come.
Yeah, why don't
There would be that alert.
Yeah, let me talk to Joel. I think the less we talk about it in open forum, the better. So,
Okay.
about security protocols, yeah,
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay, for me, for you non-farmers, it's National Biodiesel Day today. There you go. And it's also Forgive Your Parents Day, Mom and Dad. So anybody that's had parents, day works that. My first thing on 3.6, I did the mental health initiative meeting by Zoom. Like Greg, that was one of my first ones with them. That will be a regular event. Tony Masters is the chair or president of that group, so I've explained to them that I know about this much about mental health, so that they will take me by the hand and lead me through graciously. Then we had a Zoom meeting with the Joint Powers 1A ditch regard to that. That issue has been all over the board, but we finally, as a group, decided that we're going to take it to court and let the courts decide it out, because the overviewers have made their reclamation, and it's not for us to decide what if their recommendation was appropriate or not. Greg and I were at the CEC meeting, the Central Extension meeting. I just want to say that the two new people that were hired by the extension, Jackie and Lauren, that are based here out of Sherburne County, are tremendous assets. Just one of them, Lauren was on vacation in Spain, but she was forethought enough to make a video of her presentation to the board and gave it to us beforehand, so that was great. And Jackie actually attended, for her to attend the State Irrigators Association meeting, which I was there, I think was tremendous. You know, it shows that they're out in the community and they're getting their feet wet in regards to what's going on in Sherburne County, and I find that a big plus. Then on Township Annual Meeting Night was on 3/11, and as all of you know, I have 5 townships. Can't make them all, and it was challenging, but I actually made Havens, Blue Hills, Palmer's, and Santiago's annual meetings and was able to engage a little bit in all of them. So that was great. Greg talked about MICA. We went through all of that. Soil and Water Conservation, we had that meeting. That was great. Monday of this week, I met with the group from Public Health to go over their workshop planning for this week, to give me a better idea of what was going on there. And then later that morning, I met with, we met out at Two Inlets Barn. I met with one of the largest auction companies in the state, and they're kind of more of an expert on, you know, what the building was worth and what it in there. Basically, he said the contents are dumpster fodder, I think would be the way to put it. There's nothing in there that's of value. It's just a matter of getting the labor to clean it out. And the building has been, the barn, we're thinking it was made in 1916, I think. But it's been remodeled inside. So there's a lot of new dimensional lumber in it and stuff, so it's not as significantly old as we thought it was. So I think taking it down is probably the prudent thing to do, in respect to the cultural significance of where it sits and stuff, so, and that's what I did.
Who'd we bring in, if I may ask?
Steffes Auction Company. I've worked with them on multiple auctions, and they do this all the time.
Yeah, they're big.
And I actually thought the barn was what you see on TV as a hoarder house or something like that. That's exactly what I thought the barn was, and they've actually said they've seen worse.
You know, all the junk in my barn isn't valuable?
Probably not. So,
To you it is, Greg. That's what
You.
counts.
there was a few things in there, but he said he probably got about 2,500 pounds worth of metal, and the rest is just gonna be in the dumpster. So,
Okay.
you know, unless you opened up every little box and stuff and found some golden trinket that might be left in there, but
Well, it's nice to get some resolution to where we're at
Yeah.
with that program.
we can move forward, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd suggest do the workshop in the conference room.
Sounds good.
It's staff. Oh, do we? Yeah. Oh, okay, I apologize. We'll do it back here.
Okay, 11 o'clock?
Okay.
That work? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know.